Emily and Ryan Carter looked like the perfect young parents until the secret drug business hidden inside their cozy suburban home turned their baby-esque nursery into the scene of an unthinkable tragedy. Willow Creek was the kind of town that looked like it belonged on a postcard. Narrow streets lined with old oak trees curved through quiet neighborhoods where children rode their bikes and neighbors waved from their porches. Life moved slowly there, and that was exactly what Emily and Ryan Carter wanted when they decided to start their family. From the outside, everything about them seemed safe and ordinary. They were both in their late 20s, young enough to still be full of dreams, but old enough to crave stability. Emily had a gentle smile that people noticed right away, while Ryan's easy charm made him well liked at the warehouse where he worked. When their daughter Lily was born, the Carters became a picture of small-town happiness. Friends visited with casseroles and tiny pink clothes, and strangers at the grocery store often stopped to admire the baby with her soft brown curls and bright, curious eyes. Their small rental home sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac with a tidy yard and a porch swing that creaked when the wind blew. Inside, the living room was filled with cozy clutter. Baby toys in bright colors, a second-hand couch draped with a knitted blanket, a small bookshelf lined with old paperbacks. 2 neighbors and casual visitors, it felt warm and welcoming, the kind of place where you might drop by for coffee on a Sunday afternoon. No one would have guessed that behind the cheerful curtains and the soft glow of night lights, tension was slowly building. Money had always been a problem, even before Lily arrived. Ryan's job at the warehouse paid just enough to cover rent and groceries, but medical bills from the pregnancy piled up faster than they could pay them. Emily worked part-time at a local cafe, smiling at customers while silently calculating every dollar in her mind. Each month ended the same way, with overdue notices tucked into a kitchen drawer and late-night conversations about which bill they could skip without losing something important. The pressure of parenthood made everything heavier. Diapers, formula, doctor visits, and the constant worrying of unexpected expenses felt like a weight neither of them could lift. At first, the couple tried to stay hopeful. Ryan picked up extra shifts whenever they were available, and Emily clipped coupons and stretched meals as far as they would go. But the more they struggled, the more impossible it seemed to catch up. Every solution felt temporary, every small victory erased by the next unexpected bill. In those long nights when Lily finally fell asleep and the house grew quiet, Ryan would sit at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, searching for opportunities, searching for something faster than a paycheck. He told himself he just needed a little breathing room, a way to get ahead before the bills crushed them completely. Emily, exhausted from caring for the baby, didn't notice at first how restless he had become or how often he stepped outside to take calls. The cracks were invisible to everyone else, but inside the Carter home they were starting to spread. What began as a simple desire to provide for their new family was slowly twisting into something darker, though neither of them could see it clearly yet. All they knew was that they were tired of scraping by and desperate for a way out, a single choice that could change everything. In that quiet desperation, a dangerous idea was waiting for its chance to take root. Ryan's restless late-night searches eventually led him to a dangerous opportunity. It started with a casual conversation in the warehouse break room, a co-worker mentioning how some people were making quick cash selling small amounts of pills. At first, Ryan only listened, but the idea lingered long after the conversation ended. He began asking subtle questions, learning how easy it was to buy in bulk from people who knew how to stay off the radar. The thought of fast money gnawed at him every time he looked at the unpaid bills stacked on the kitchen counter. He convinced himself it was temporary, just a way to catch up before things spiraled too far. One evening, after Emily had put Lily to bed, Ryan finally shared the idea. His voice was careful, almost hesitant, but there was a spark of excitement beneath the worrying. Emily was horrified at first. The very word drugs felt poisonous in their small home filled with baby toys and bottles, but Ryan was persuasive. He painted it as a short-term plan, just a few sales to wipe out their debts. He talked about how no one would ever know, how they could hide everything safely and walk away once they were back on their feet. Fear clashed with exhaustion inside Emily's mind. She thought of hospital bills, rent notices, and the tiny baby sleeping just a few feet away. Against her better judgment, she didn't say no. Their first deal was small. Ryan used a late-night break to meet a contact and return with a few plastic bags hidden inside his work jacket. He stored them in a shoebox beneath the floorboard in the closet, his hands trembling as he slid it into place. Emily pretended not to see, but she noticed every detail: the way his heart pounded, the smell of sweat and fear that clung to him when he came home. The next day, the shoebox was a little lighter, and there was an envelope of cash tucked behind a stack of diapers. The money felt like a lifeline, crisp bills that promised relief. That first success made everything seem easier. Ryan began arranging more meetings, using excuses about overtime to cover his late returns. Emily started helping in small ways, at first by simply keeping track of their earnings, then by sending coded text messages to customers when Ryan was busy. Their teamwork, once focused on raising their daughter, shifted quietly toward running a business they could never talk about. The more they earned, the more confident they became. They started to believe they were invisible. Soon, their tidy little house doubled as a storage space. Packages were hidden inside kitchen cupboards, beneath piles of laundry, even in Lily's unused diaper boxes. They reassured themselves that everything was sealed tightly and out of reach, repeating the lie that their baby was safe. But each secret delivery tightened a noose they couldn't see. They told themselves it was still temporary, yet the extra cash became addictive. Instead of paying off debts and walking away, they began to dream of more money, more security, more freedom. The shortcut they thought would save them had already begun to control them, and the danger crept silently closer to the heart of their home. As the weeks turned into months, the Carters' secret life began to grow faster than they had ever planned. The shoebox in the closet was no longer enough. Ryan brought home larger packages wrapped in layers of tape and plastic, each one heavier and riskier than the last. What had once been an occasional late-night errand became a regular routine. Customers, at first limited to people Ryan knew through work, started referring others. Strangers' names appeared on Emily's phone, and unfamiliar cars occasionally slowed down in front of their house before pulling away. The couple told themselves it was all under control, but the signs of danger were multiplying. The business that had once felt like a clever solution quickly became a source of constant stress. Ryan worked long shifts at the warehouse by day and spent late nights driving to meet new contacts. He slept less, his nerves stretched tight, and Emily noticed the way his hands shook when he counted cash. Emily tried to stay calm, but the tension seeped into every corner of their lives. She began triple-checking the locks on the doors, peering through the curtains at night whenever a car slowed on their street. Even simple sounds, a door creak, a dog barking in the distance, made her heart race. Arguments began to fill the quiet spaces of their home. Ryan accused Emily of worrying too much, while Emily begged him to slow down. They snapped at each other over small things like dirty dishes or late-night phone calls, though both knew the real reason for their fights. Their relationship, once warm and hopeful, grew colder as fear replaced trust. Lily, still too young to understand, sensed the unease. She fussed more often, her cries echoing through the tense silence of the house. Their once cozy home was slowly transforming. The kitchen, once filled with the smell of baby formula and fresh coffee, now carried faint chemical scents after Ryan handled packages late at night. Baby toys shared space with sealed envelopes of cash tucked behind couch cushions. Emily tried to keep everything clean and separate, but the lines between their family life and their secret business were blurring. The danger that they believed they could keep outside was creeping closer to Lily's world with every passing day. One rainy night, the illusion of control shattered. Ryan rushed in from a delivery, his jacket damp and his shoes muddy. As he fumbled with a package, a corner of the bag tore open. A fine white powder spilled across the living room carpet, scattering near Lily's colorful play mat. Ryan cursed under his breath and dropped to his knees, frantically scooping the powder with trembling hands. Emily grabbed a damp towel, both of them working in silent panic. They thought they had cleaned it all, scrubbing until the carpet looked spotless again. But tiny grains of residue clung invisibly to the fibers, impossible to see, impossible to fully remove. Neither of them wanted to admit how close they had come to disaster. They reassured each other that Lily had been asleep in her crib, far from the mess, and that the small accident was nothing more than a close call. Yet deep inside, a new fear began to take root. Their safe little world was no longer safe at all, and the danger they had tried to keep hidden was now lurking beneath their own feet. Morning came quietly, as if the world outside had no idea what danger was waiting inside the Carter home. Rain from the night before had left the air damp and heavy. Emily woke first to the sound of Lily stirring in her crib, her soft coos breaking the stillness. The day began like any other, with bottles warming on the counter and a tired smile exchanged between parents who had barely slept. Ryan left early for work, moving with the jittery energy that had become his new normal, while Emily settled into her usual routine of feeding, changing, and playing with their daughter. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Lily giggled when Emily tickled her feet, grasped at her toys, and babbled in the sweet, aimless way of a healthy baby. Emily felt a rare moment of relief as she watched her daughter roll across the soft living room carpet, chasing a rattle. The memory of the spilled powder from the night before lingered in her mind, but she forced it aside. The carpet looked clean, everything looked safe. She told herself there was nothing to worry about. As the morning stretched into afternoon, small changes began to appear so subtle that Emily barely noticed. Lily became unusually quiet, her bright eyes growing heavy. When Emily offered her a bottle, she drank only a little before turning her face away. At first, Emily thought it was just a fussy mood or the beginning of a cold. Babies had off days, she reminded herself. But soon, Lily's breathing slowed and her tiny body felt strangely limp in Emily's arms. A wave of cold fear washed over her. Panic set in as Emily tried to wake her. She checked the baby's forehead, desperate for an explanation, but there was no fever. Lily's breaths were shallow and uneven, her small chest barely rising. Emily's heart pounded as she dialed emergency services with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked as she tried to explain what was happening. The operator's calm instructions felt far away, like echoes in a nightmare. She was told to keep Lily awake, to keep talking, to keep breathing herself, but the seconds stretched into a blur of terror. The sound of approaching sirens should have brought comfort, but Emily could barely hear them over the rush of her own heartbeat. Paramedics arrived quickly, moving with urgent precision as they carried Lily out of the house and into the waiting ambulance. Emily followed, numb and shaking, barely aware of the rain that still clung to her hair. At the hospital, doctors and nurses worked frantically, their voices a rapid stream of medical terms Emily couldn't understand. She sat frozen in a hard plastic chair, her mind replaying every moment of the morning. When Ryan finally arrived, pale and wide-eyed, he wrapped his arms around her, but neither of them spoke. Minutes felt like hours until a doctor emerged with eyes heavy with the kind of news that needs no words. Tests revealed what Emily and Ryan had feared but couldn't bring themselves to imagine. Lily had ingested a lethal amount of powerful toxins, the kind found in the very substances they had been hiding inside their home. The invisible grains they thought they had cleaned away were enough to poison a baby's fragile body. No amount of medical skill could undo the damage. The couple's desperate plan for quick money had turned their own living room into a trap, and their daughter had paid the price with her life. The hospital room that once echoed with frantic activity became unbearably quiet after the doctors delivered their final words. Emily sat motionless in the hard plastic chair, her arms empty and her heart splintered beyond recognition. Ryan stood nearby, his face pale and blank, staring at the floor as if refusing to believe what had happened. The tiny crib where Lily had spent her last moments of life remained at the center of the room, a cruel reminder of everything they had lost. Nurses moved softly around them, their footsteps careful and hushed, but nothing could soften the reality that their baby was gone. The police arrived not long after, their questions sharp and unavoidable. At first, Emily and Ryan tried to explain Lily's sudden illness as a mystery, a tragedy with no cause. But the hospital's toxicology reports spoke louder than their words. Traces of the same dangerous substances hidden in their home were found in the baby's system. The connection was undeniable. Officers searched their house that evening, uncovering the very secrets the couple had worked so hard to hide. Packages of pills and powder were pulled from cupboards, diaper boxes, and beneath floorboards. Cash bundles wrapped in rubber bands were counted and photographed. Every hiding place they believed was clever now stood exposed under the harsh glow of police flashlights. Neighbors who had once waved kindly from their porches gathered outside, watching in disbelief as officers carried evidence out of the Carter home. The cheerful couple with the sweet baby girl was suddenly the subject of whispered conversations and stunned stares. Some neighbors felt anger, others sorrow. But all of Willow Creek struggled to reconcile the loving parents they thought they knew with the criminals now facing the weight of the law. The image of the young family strolling through the park just weeks earlier became a haunting memory of what could have been. The legal process moved swiftly, fueled by public outrage and the undeniable evidence. Emily and Ryan were charged with involuntary manslaughter, child endangerment, and multiple drug-related crimes. Courtrooms that once felt like distant settings from television dramas became their new reality. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, their cameras capturing every tear, every lowered gaze. Inside, prosecutors laid out the story in painful detail, the secret business, the hidden stashes, the careless spill that cost an innocent life. Each piece of evidence cut deeper than the last, and each witness statement drove home the irreversible truth. During the trial, Emily and Ryan rarely looked at each other. The once inseparable couple now sat side by side yet felt miles apart, trapped in the silence of their own guilt. They listened as lawyers debated their fate, knowing no sentence could ever equal the punishment of losing Lily. When the verdict finally came guilty on all charges, the courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Both were given lengthy prison sentences. Their lives split apart by iron bars and endless regret. As the small town tried to heal, the Carter case remained a cautionary tale whispered among neighbors and repeated in hushed tones to restless teenagers. Behind the pretty curtains of a quiet suburban home, greed and desperation had taken root, growing in secret until tragedy forced them into the open. Willow Creek moved on, but the memory of a baby lost to her parents' reckless choices lingered like a shadow, a reminder that even the safest-looking families can harbor dangers no one dares imagine.